DaVinci Resolve 20.1 is out. In this video, we will show you what's new. On-screen text will indicate studio and free features. We will start off with features that apply to all the pages. For a long time, Fusion has featured an effects search interface. By hitting Shift plus Spacebar, this dialog appears, allowing you to find a tool by simply starting to type its name. This feature now works across the Cut, Edit, Color, and Fairlight pages. Hit Shift plus Spacebar, type the name of an effect, for example, Gaussian blur. In this instance, I already have a clip selected in the timeline. When I select the effect and hit Enter, it is applied to the selected clip. The effects search interface can also be used to apply transitions to a selected clip, or my next example, add generators to the timeline. Position the playhead, open the interface, and find the title you wish. And there you go, it's inserted in my timeline. As mentioned, this tool also works on the other pages. For example, on the color page, I can use it to apply the film look creator to a node. Resolve now supports WebP image files. No longer will you have to convert them when downloading from the internet. Just bring them straight into Resolve. While we're on the topic of images, have you ever imported one but then edited it in an external program outside of Resolve, only to be frustrated when it doesn't update within Resolve? Be frustrated no longer. If I open this image in Affinity Photo and make a quick change, I'll just squiggle something obvious on the image, save it, and return to Resolve. Check that out. It's updated in the source viewer. We're now moving into changes that have been made on the edit page. In version 20, DaVinci Resolve's keyframe controls were overhauled. They were moved from the timeline to the keyframe widget and could also be viewed on the keyframe tray. But the keyframe tray was only able to show lanes. It could not show the curve editor. Well, now it can. Let me show you some of the awesome things you can do with it. I'll open the keyframe tray, and you can switch between lanes and curves using these buttons, similar to the widget. The lanes offer a simplified view that allows you to edit the timing of your keyframes, but it's not possible to change their values. Curves allow you to see both your keyframe timings and to change their values. You can assign a hotkey for toggling between these two views. In keyboard customization, search for Toggle Keyframe Curve. It would appear that there are separate hotkeys for the widget, tray, and cut page. Back to the keyframe tray. In this first example, I have animated the zoom of this clip. You can see how these parameters change over time. And of course, the tray's scale matches the timeline perfectly, even if I zoom in or zoom out. They're linked. The triple dot menu contains controls that allows you to filter which parameters are visible. At the moment, mine is set to display parameters with keyframes. It's really helpful for keeping the tray nice and tidy. If I add a keyframe to a new parameter in the inspector, that parameter will appear in the tray. Some people prefer to see all of the animatable parameters in the tray. If that's you, enable Display All Video Parameters. And good news, this option is sticky, so it'll apply to all the clips you look at. Even though everything is now listed, I can only see the curve for parameters that are enabled. Notice that most of the curve icons are grayed out. Let's turn on rotation. Just like other places in Resolve, you can add keyframes by alt-clicking. The keyframes and lines in between can be adjusted by clicking and dragging. I want to ease all of the keyframes I've created on this clip. Not a problem. Highlight them. But there's no interpolation controls in the tray like there is in the widget. Or is there? Actually, there is. Right-click on any of the keyframes, and there we are. I'll select Ease In and Out. You can modify the Bezier handles of multiple keyframes simultaneously, just simply by having them selected. And of course, the Shift modifier can be used to constrain the Bezier handle movement so that you don't create animation overshoots. What if I trim this clip? Now the keyframes no longer fall within its bounds, but it's not a problem because the tray will still show keyframes beyond the clip's bounds. There's some really cool keyframe hotkeys that you should check out. Just head to Keyboard Customization and type keyframe to start getting ideas. One of the hotkeys you can use is the square brackets. They navigate between keyframes in your timeline. And here's a hot tip for you. On this particular clip, when I try to navigate using the square bracket to the keyframe that's now outside of the clip's bounds, look what happens. Can you work out what happened there? I've had Selection Follows Playhead turned on. Disable it. Reselect the clip, and now I can move freely between the keyframes, even if they're outside of the clip's bounds, without the clip getting deselected. We're almost done with keyframing. One more thing to show you. A lot of people love the way that retiming works in Premiere, being able to manipulate the retime curve directly on the timeline. Great news, you can now do that in Resolve. Here's the clip I'm going to retime. Select it. By default, the retime speed curve is not visible. Enable it. You can add keyframes by alt-clicking. Then you can drag the line up and down to change the speed of that portion of the clip. Select the keyframes themselves, right-click, and you can change the interpolation. Now it's a speed ramp because it eases. Take note that I was in trim edit mode, so the change in the clip's length rippled the rest of the timeline. It will behave differently in selection edit mode. If I select the clip in the timeline and hit Command-R to open the retime controls, you can see the changes made. You don't need to choose one method of working or the other, because the work that I did in the keyframe tray is visible in the retime controls on the clip. Editing one will affect the other. We've spent all this time talking about the keyframe tray. There are improvements in the widget as well. I'm going to point out just one. Beforehand, the vertical zoom of the curve view cannot be adjusted. This made it difficult doing things like increasing the value of a keyframe. There's now separate horizontal and vertical zoom controls. It's so great to see how Blackmagic has revamped the keyframing controls in version 20. And even better yet, they didn't stop there. They have continually improved Resolve and responded to community feedback. So big thank you for that. Please, can we take a moment to tell you about the sponsor of this video, Audiio. For many people, the hardest thing about using stock music is finding the right track that fits the style and energy of your edit. Audiio has two fantastic tools that help reduce that friction point. If you've heard a song that you like, but perhaps it's a commercial track that you don't have the budget to license, paste a link into LinkMatch AI, and it will search Audio's own library and find songs that match its energy and genre that you can use. Or if you don't even know what you want yet, simply describe the kind of video you're scoring or perhaps the style of music you'd like, and it will suggest tracks from Audio's library. We love it when AI is used to streamline your workflow rather than replace your creativity. But we think your favorite thing about Audiio will be its price. You can get an entire year's subscription for just $60 using the link in the description. It's now possible to create trimmed duplicate timelines from the timeline viewer. Just set in and out points, right-click up top, and you're looking for this option, Create SubClip. There's a hotkey as well, Option B. A duplicate timeline has been created in the media pool. When I open it, you will see it's not the entire timeline, it's just the portion I marked. Auto Sync Audio has received an update. Previously, there were only two options, waveform or timecode sync. There's now an option to use in points, out points, and markers. This is great for when there's no scratch audio on the camera and no timecode. This is an awesome feature. I didn't know I wanted this, but now it's here. I definitely do. Hover your cursor anywhere in the timeline and push C. The playhead will move to that location. You can even scrub by holding down on C. Sure, you could move the playhead around with the mouse previously, but you had to click on a very narrow portion of the interface to do so. So absolutely love this new functionality. We love DaVinci Resolve's full extents zoom mode because unlike similar zoom to fit functions, this dynamically adjusts zoom as you fill your timeline. There are now menu actions for these two buttons, and you can assign them hotkeys, making them easier to use. There are now configurable actions to enable or disable clips in the timeline. There was previously a configurable hotkey to toggle when a clip was enabled or disabled. You would use D. Why do we need explicit keys then? Well, if you select multiple clips in your timeline, where some are enabled and some are disabled, there is no easy way of enabling or disabling all of the clips. When the new enable hotkey is configured and used, it will ensure all of the clips are enabled rather than having to toggle their individual states. In the past, it was possible to choose whether you inserted video only or audio only by dragging from the appropriate portion of the source viewer. But the option was only accessible when clicking and dragging with the mouse. There's a new menu that allows you to set a persistent video or audio option that affects hotkey-based insert operations. I love this. This also affects clicking and dragging. Let's check out the improvements made to the color page. There's a suite of new tools that will help with creating split tone looks. We'll start with the new Resolve FX Split Tone. It's accessed from FX. This tool allows you to drive different hues into the shadows and highlights of your image. It's great for doing things like emulating film stocks. Let's see if we can understand the tool. This Preview Influence checkbox is incredibly helpful. It looks a little like an edge filter. It's helpful because it's turned the image into grayscale, but we can still identify all the various features and elements in the image. It makes it easier to see where the split tones are being added. You can see that changing the pivot changes what parts of the image are considered highlights and shadows. Hue angle changes which colors are being introduced. If you really want to understand how this tool works, in fact, understand how any tool works, test it on a grayscale. Here's one I created using the generator in the edit page. Don't forget, you need to compound it before it will show in the color page. Apply split tone and then enable preview influence. That's so cool. You can see that split tone has no effect on the blacks, whites, or the pivot point. Obviously, moving the pivot point changes where that split happens. Preserve neutrals does exactly what it says. It stops the split tone from affecting neutral colors in the image. On this grayscale image, it appears to completely disable the split tone effect. It hasn't though. It's just the entire image is neutral or gray. I'll turn it back off. What do the different split tone modes do? Take note, in my vector scope, while in neutral mode, it uses a 90-degree split between the two colors. In strong mode, it uses a 180-degree split between the two colors. Finally, in custom mode, you can control the highlights and shadows separately. They each have their own independent hue and strength controls. It has the same preserve neutrals control found in the natural mode, but this time it gives you further controls that allows you to qualify what parts of the image are considered neutral. The preserve neutral control, whether you are in custom or natural mode, is useful for making your split tone more subtle because it stops it from affecting those neutral anchors in your image. White still looks white and black still looks black. The same split tone controls have been added to the Film Look Creator. Notice though that only strong and natural are present in the Film Look Creator. So if you want more control over your split tone, build a node tree where it is applied separately. There's even more new features in Resolve 20.1. We're sure that other educators like Mr. Alex Tech, Patrick Sterling, and Darren Mostyn will cover things we haven't. Go check them out. This next new effect, ColorTone Diffuser, is super interesting. This tool emulates a piece of hardware often called a flasher. It can be used with digital cameras, but was more commonly used on film cameras. It's a filter that would typically be placed in front of the lens. This device would pre-expose film with a carefully controlled flash of neutral or colored light. Because this was typically done using an edge-lit filter in front of the lens, this effect would often have fall off around the edges and generally diffuse the image. Controls to simulate those effects have also been built into this new effect. Like all other effects, ColorTone Diffuser is found in the Effects tab and applied to a node. This is a tool for creating looks. There's a collection of presets. Let's try a few. This is subtle. This is teal soft. Let's go back to Clean Slate and explore the options for ourselves. Resolution appears to be a control for the overall softness of the image, so that emulates the softness that a physical filter would add to your image. Diffusion adds a glow to the highlights. I'm going to switch to a grayscale now because it's easier to demonstrate these tools. I'll enable and then disable each tool individually so you can see its adjustments in isolation. Shadow Clip allows you to raise the blacks in your image. Softness adds a knee to the adjustment. Highlight Clip works the same way. It just clips the highlights instead. Tone light gets interesting. As I increase the intensity, you can see it has a slight roll-off of blacks. But unlike the Shadow Clip tool, there's no hard threshold in the highlights where it stops working. That reflects how physical flashers used to work. The flash primarily affected the darker parts of the image because a slight flash in a part of the image that's already bright isn't going to be as visible. I can change the color of the flash with these bias sliders. As you can see, they're adding color into the shadows. Tone light fall off masks the effect, allowing you to focus the changes on the center of the image, kind of like a vignette. And finally, the tool has some basic exposure, saturation, and contrast sliders built in. For most people, this is a tool for building looks. That's why it contains this 3D LUT compatible checkbox. It disables the diffusion and fall-off adjustments. As they are spatial, they cannot be saved into a LUT. The rest of the color tone diffuser adjustments can be saved into a LUT. In particular, this tool excels at manipulating the shadows within your image. It can, for example, help you to emulate the milky shadows seen in some film images. You might also find applications when fixing balance issues and matching the black point of one image to another. We have no doubt you're going to work out how to do amazing things with it. Light rays is a powerful Resolve effects that allows you to simulate shafts of light in a room. Not a new effect, but it has been improved. I'll demonstrate using this shot. I want the light rays to come just from the windows on the left. Let's start by fine-tuning the source threshold to select just the parts of the image we want to emit rays. Instead of a drop-down, there's now buttons at the top to switch between viewing the source regions, rays, and final result. I'll switch to source region while I configure the threshold. Don't forget, these options are not just helpful for configuring your light rays, but by leaving the effect in rays alone mode, you could use layer and parallel mixers to give more control over how your light rays are composited. I've set up my threshold to capture just the brightest portions of the image, but the tables and the other windows in the image are still included. I can fix that with a simple power window. As alpha mask's light source is selected, this window is just controlling the source regions and not affecting where the light rays can be drawn. Let's switch back to final result. One last adjustment, change the ray directions to at an angle and adjust so it looks like the light is streaming in through these windows. Fantastic, everything is set up. Now I can show you the new features. Now that our basic light ray is configured, let's refine it. These controls allow you to manipulate the appearance of the light rays. You can change the length of the light ray and its softness. The first upgrade is the addition of separate red, green, and blue controls for the length of the light ray. Length still controls the overall length, but relative red, green, and blue can be used to extend or contract just one color. By playing with these sliders, I can give the light rays this really cool rainbow effect. Previously, the light rays effect did have this control, but this added a single color uniformly to the entire light ray. This is much better, and when applied subtly, it looks really fantastic. Sometimes the light rays compositing can be a little strong, so we really like changing the composite type found in advanced controls to screen. That's better. That's not a new feature though, just a little tip. There are two more improvements to light rays. The Shimmer and Atmosphere tabs are brand new. Shimmer and Atmosphere can be used to add additional realism to the effect. At first glance, these tools seem to contain similar controls, but they do different things. The reason we see light rays is because they are interacting with dust and moisture in the air, which has varying consistency and can move as well. Shimmer allows you to make the light source for your rays more organic, but you'll notice that the rays emanating from it are still perfectly consistent. Atmosphere allows you to add variation to the light rays themselves, again making the image look more natural. I'll turn them both off and back on one more time so you can see the difference. It looks like some sort of fast noise is being used in the background to generate these effects. Detail and scale control how busy or simple the atmosphere is. What about movement? That's what evolution and seethe are for. It's hard to demonstrate their effects on this shot because there's so much other visual distraction in the frame, so let me jump to another clip. I've prepped a simple demonstration. This clip is a white and black solid comped together on the edit page. Like before, add light rays, but this time I will only turn on atmosphere. If I turn seethe all the way down to 0 and hit play, note how the atmosphere doesn't move. If I run it all the way to maximum, atmosphere changes very quickly, so seethe is the rate at which the atmosphere moves. What then is evolution? It's just the starting point from which the animation seethes. If you don't want your shimmer or atmosphere to be animated, simply use evolution to add noise that you like. If you want either of them to be animated, then you probably don't even need to touch evolution. Just set seethe at the desired rate. The new RGB and atmosphere controls improve an already powerful tool, adding greater realism and creative potential. Glow has also received upgrades. It has the same atmosphere controls now found in light rays. When could you use atmosphere? It depends on what kind of glow you're trying to create. For example, when emulating the glow of a soft lens or film, atmosphere isn't relevant. A glow created by film or an optical filter would be even. However, if you're grading a scene set in fog or at night, then atmosphere is relevant, as the glow you are emulating would be created by the atmosphere in the scene. There's one other improvement to the glow effect. You can now add a secondary glow, for when your glow needs a glow of its own. Face Refinement has excellent tools for smoothing skin. Unfortunately, that smoothing can easily remove any grain or noise present, the absence of which will make your compositing quite obvious. There's now tools to add grain to skin areas. Strength, size, softness, and saturation can be used to carefully match your regrain to the existing grain present in the image. A nice quality of life improvement here. You'll be pleased to know that Magic Mask retention and caching has been improved, particularly when copying grade versions and timelines. Time to move on to the Fairlight page. It's now possible to record high dynamic range 32-bit recordings directly in Fairlight. Please note the amount of dynamic range you can capture is still dependent on a combination of things, including your microphone and the audio interface you're using. To enable this new feature, head to Project Settings, the Fairlight tab, and check Use 32-bit Float Recording. It's as simple as that. For more information about capture in Fairlight, please check out our tutorial linked below. Whether you are using 32-bit float or not, you'll be pleased to hear that the accuracy of the waveform while recording has been improved. If for any reason a waveform needs to be regenerated, there's a context menu option to do so. Dialog Matcher is useful for matching the ambience and tone of dialogue recordings. Previously, this tool worked well with dry to wet matching, but did not perform very well with wet to dry. It also had no options. You just capture a dialogue profile and then applied it. Improvements have been made under the hood that affect wet to dry matching, and it now has controls that allow you to configure the amount of voice isolation and ambience that's applied. This is useful, for example, in those scenarios where Dialog Matcher has got you 90% of the way there, but has applied a tad too much reverb. Now you can rein it back using the controls. On the Fairlight page, you can now delete buses from the index and track header. Beforehand, you needed to head to the bus format dialog. Now you don't. And finally, let's check out the new features on the Fusion page. Magic Mask version 2 is now available. It works the same way it does on the color page. Click to add points rather than dragging to create lines. If you want to use the original Magic Mask, there's a checkbox to engage legacy mode. Because the Fusion effect doesn't show a list of strokes, you'll find these clear stroke controls helpful. For example, I can use the render range like in and out points in combination with the clear strokes range button to delete multiple strokes simultaneously. There are new tools for working on Apple Immersive Video in the Fusion page. Learn about them in our separate video linked in the description. Do you like building your own custom tools in Fusion? Perhaps you followed one of our tutorials. Additional controls are created with the Edit Control dialog. To edit an existing control, you have to find it in this long drop-down list. Sure, typing its name and using autocomplete helped, but it was still a little tedious. Well, now you can simply right-click on a control in the inspector and go to Edit Control. It will open the Edit Controls dialog and navigate directly to the control. There's a selection of other improvements that affect things like deep compositing, USD rendering, something called Swizzlers, and expressions in Cryptomats. Please check out Blackmagic's release notes. Minor releases are some of our favorite because they tend to bring improvements to the tools we're already using and loving. 20.1 is no exception for that. What's your favorite feature in this update? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and consider subscribing so you don't miss out on future videos. Thanks for watching.